Welcome to today's podcast. We're thrilled to join with two leaders to dive deep into the trends of energy transition, especially in the Middle East. First up, we have McLauchlan, who is spearheading EUR Mechanical's commitment to drive sustainability, especially with the ambitious goal of generating 30% of the revenue by 2030 from sustainable energy alone. Joining Neil as we have Cammy, who is working as Business Development Manager at Net Zero Technology Center, NZTC. And Cammy is doing phenomenal work in bringing NZTC's mission of leveraging expertise from UK to the Middle East end users. Neil, there are plenty of things happening with energy transition across the globe. Each country and each of the end user NOCs and IOCs, they have a different approach. I'd like to hear your perspective on how ADNOC is approaching the entire energy transition.
I think the first thing to say is we've been a long-term partner of ADNOC, so hopefully we're well placed to comment. If you look back 2 years ago, Dr. Sultan's speech at ADIPEC was instructive. It set out the policy, maximum energy, minimum emissions. Inbuilt in that was a pragmatic recognition that the world needs ever-increasing levels of energy, but we need to do it in a more environmentally responsible fashion. They've done what one would expect, albeit in a bold fashion. ADNOC have set the target of 2045 to achieve net zero, but they're helping the value chain by setting nearer-term targets. So, for example, by the end of the decade, GHG emission intensity is to be reduced by 25%. Importantly, the budget allocation is there, more so by the day. I would cite one budget alone, the $23 billion that are dedicated to low-carbon energy solutions. Now, if you look at, let's say, the discrete strategic initiatives, there are clearly many of those, but let's mention some key themes. The first, electrification. ADNOC Offshore alone have their smart upstream program where they take the fuels that are off the grid and put them on the grid. That's a key step towards the energy transition. The integration of renewable energy sources, another key move. And finally, and I love this because it's really pragmatic, is right now, in the short to medium term, in fact, there's still a need for fossil fuel combustion. And in fact, in the future, there will need to be that also. So you need to do something about the associated emissions, the reduction or ideally the removal. ADNOC are building out CCS value chains to do exactly that. Now, in recent days, we've benefited from ADNOC's publication on AI. I would counsel anyone to read it. It's a fantastic read. What it tells us, and I believe this is, I'm paraphrasing, but the message is AI can reset the boundaries of productivity and the possibilities of progress. It's an enabler technology. It can help all of the above. It can help electrification. It can help the integration of renewable energy sources. It's a force multiplier. The last thing I would comment on, and perhaps it's the how ADNOC are going about it. I've only been in Abu Dhabi a short period of time, but I benefit from sitting within a fully Emirati-owned business, which is EUR Mechanical. So I think I'm learning fast as to how business is done here. It's about relationships. ADNOC show that in their strategic execution. They're committed to collaboration. They're committed to international partnership. And the third point I would mention, which is rather refreshing for me, I've worked in many jurisdictions across the world with IOCs and NOCs. The thing that's refreshing is ADNOC are willing to be a regional first mover for tech adoption. I find that very exciting.
No, that's. Thank you for saying that, Neil. That's so powerful. Building upon what Neil has just mentioned, Cammy, NZTC has specific experience in terms of working on some of the ADNOC challenges, like I believe COP28 Decarbonisation Technology Challenge. Can you share some perspective on that one? How did that go, and what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, firstly, thank you for having me on. It's great to be here. Really excited to be here at ADIPEC, partnering with EUR Mechanical. So I think when we look at ADNOC, truthfully, this is true of all major operators, and ADNOC is no different. A key challenge for them is the identification of really innovative new technologies that address their specific pain points. And I think that sometimes that can be a little bit daunting, the identification of those technologies, because truthfully, there's so much technology emerging, there's so much innovation happening all over the world, that finding the right technologies at the right maturity with application to the business can be a challenge, right? And I think that's where at NZTC we feel we can offer value, we can offer support with what we term innovation competitions, which is really focused on the identification of technologies which address those specific pain points within an organization's operations. So just to point to a couple of the most recent, more high-profile examples of those that we've delivered in the UAE, we've supported ADNOC firstly on the delivery of the Decarbonisation Technology Challenge, which, as you say, concluded at COP28 and was focused on identifying really innovative climate technologies, right? And it was quite a broad remit. So it was looking across a couple of the areas that Neil mentioned, so CCUS, AI, integrated renewable energy sources, including hydrogen, renewable electricity production, even nature-based solutions, right? It was quite a broad remit. And together with ADNOC, we managed to source over 650 technologies from over 50 countries. So we were delighted to kind of lend our support to that initiative. And we really feel that ADNOC took a great deal of benefit from that. It concluded at COP28, as I mentioned. RevTerra, a US-based, really innovative kinetic battery storage solution, won a $1 million pilot in ADNOC's operations, which was fantastic. And as I say, ADNOC felt that they took huge value, not just from the winner, but from visibility of the 650 technologies in terms of innovation that was coming through all over the world. Following the success of that initiative, we are now in the latter stages of delivery of a second innovation competition for ADNOC, so called the Sulphur Innovation Challenge, which is a little bit more niche in terms of the scope. It's looking at the identification of really innovative technology solutions to diversify the sustainable utilization of sulphur, which, as we know, is obviously a huge technology focus area in the Middle East and ADNOC, of course. So that's concluding this week at ADIPEC on Wednesday with a final where 5 of those really exciting technologies will pitch for a $1 million pilot in ADNOC's operations again. So two examples of competitions which we've hosted for obviously a massive player in region in ADNOC. And as I say, delighted that it's brought value to the region.
Well, $1 million pilot, that sounds exciting, Cammy. And 650 technologies seem very broad scope of technologies. Based on your international experience, what works and what doesn't? Can you touch a little base on that?
So I guess when we're looking at the delivery of clear, implementable technology and decarbonisation strategies, I think the first thing to say is that there is no one-size-fits-all approach, right? Every operator, every organisation is different based on the operations themselves, their assets, their R&D portfolio, their production goals in the future, their decarbonisation, diversification goals in the future are all very different. And I think that's the first thing to say, is that when we're working with an organisation to implement a decarbonisation or a technology roadmap, every solution we offer is bespoke and obviously tailored to that organisation based on some of those factors. I think for us, when we're beginning that journey of a technology or a decarbonisation strategy, one really key thing to understand is the direction of travel for some of these key technologies. Understanding where they're going to be in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years' time, so that you can work your way back to implement a strategy which addresses those. So that's a process that at NZTC we call horizon scanning. And the way that we do that is we work with a client to understand key tipping points in these key technologies. So to point to a few of the examples that Neil and I mentioned already, looking at CCUS, hydrogen, these kind of technologies, those key tipping points, if you like, could be related to cost. So in relation to green hydrogen production, it might be the cost of production for a ton of green hydrogen, for example. It could be the cost of capturing a ton of CO2. In other technologies, it might be widespread adoption across the industry of a specific technology solution. It could be the introduction of certain standards and policies. But in every technology, there is different tipping points, and we work with the client to understand what those are. Then what we do at NZTC is we lean on our subject matter experts, our expertise of technologies coming through, to assign dates to these events. And when we put all of these different tipping points together, we can actually build a really strong understanding of the future of the energy sector in the context of that organisation. And that's a really strong starting point to then work your way back to implement a technology or a decarbonisation strategy that addresses those tipping points and preps for those eventualities, right? I think the other thing I would mention is that I truthfully believe that when you look at the breadth of technologies, as you mentioned, across the energy transition at the moment, there's very few organisations that can answer comprehensively what that net zero journey looks like. And I think at NZTC, that's a key USP for us, is we work across a range of energy transition technologies. Since our inception, we've screened over 3,500 techs, leading to over 150 field trials, over 60 technology commercializations. And from our perspective, we see that as our key USP, is that we have been in the nuts and the bolts of the development and deployment of technology in the UK and elsewhere for 7 or 8 years now, and that puts us in a great position to assist clients with decarbonisation strategies.
Right. And in terms of the collaboration itself, I'm sure there's a lot of collaboration that would happen when multiple players from across the ecosystem are involved in this journey of bringing a technology to shape. Neil, my question to you is, what role does new partnerships, especially companies, technology companies and companies like us working together, how do you think this will help us foster innovation?
In short, Victor, they're critical. Absolutely critical. Cammy and I often have a debate about the exact data, right? But depending on the data source you use, anywhere between 10 and 35% only of the technology required to achieve net zero is currently deployed. So that represents both a massive problem and a massive opportunity. Partnership is key to solving that. There are idiosyncrasies when it comes to sustainable technologies as well. A sustainable tech doesn't live and breathe and exist in and of itself. It's within a wider ecosystem. There's an interdependency there. If you take solar power generation as an example, a wonderful clean energy source, but to really make it fly, it's great to couple it with energy storage systems. So we need the technology folks in energy storage, talking with those solar developers, to bring together an integrated solution. So the economics make sense and the environmental case makes sense as well. If we boil it down to a micro level, and we look at tech developer by tech developer, I come from a technology background. A big part of my career was there, and I saw it not only in sustainable tech, but it's universal to new tech development. The brilliant minds behind tech development, what makes them brilliant often limits their ability to industrialize the technology, to take it from the lab to the field trial to deployment at scale. You need to bring in that skill set through partnership. Whether it be EUR Mechanical or others, you need that skill set. Sticking on a micro basis, similarly, these tech companies do what they do, they design new tech. We cannot expect them to be expert in entering new locales and new foreign jurisdictions. How do you set up a business? How do you map the clients? How do you understand their buying process? What does their tech adoption process look like? How do you get market traction? Local partners are vital in order to bridge that gap. So for me, at a macro level, partnerships are key, but boil it right down. Tech developer by tech developer, partnerships are a must.
So, thank you for that, Neil. And Cammy, what do you think about Neil's thoughts on how the tech companies, since you've worked with hundreds of technology companies and you've seen them you've helped them scale their offerings and you have a lot of expertise in that area. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I completely echo Neil's thoughts. I think that at NZTC, partnerships and collaboration are at the very core of how we were established and our continued activity. So just to point to a few more stats, because I know you'll have a stat, Victor, but so, we've invested almost £500 million into technology development, and that's manifested itself in hundreds of technology development and deployment projects. So, we feel we're in a strong position to comment on what are those key steps to developing the tech and then moving towards field trial scale and ultimately commercialization. I think we're in a strong position to talk to that. And I think even just speaking, from an NZTC perspective, partners like EUR Mechanical are absolutely crucial, especially when looking to develop and expand into new markets such as the UAE, where we see so much activity and so much opportunity for emerging technology development companies. Just to echo Neil's thoughts, they will have a fantastic understanding of the technology itself, its use cases, its applications. But truthfully, when you're trying to set up a new business on the ground, you need the advice of trusted partners, trusted advisors, because truthfully they understand the market much better than you ever could, coming from a country like the UK. And then just to follow on from that, in the UK as NZTC, we've operated on a number of joint industry projects that we have led, and we have kind of positioned ourselves at the heart of those, pulling together operators, supply chain companies and technology developers to really split the risk, split the cost of developing and trialing new technologies. And it's a model that I think we're seeing more and more appetite from industry to collaborate in general, and to really advance these technologies through the TRL scale out to deployment for the benefit of the industry as a whole. And that's a model that we're really excited to be bringing to the UAE as well. We're excited to pull together operators with a common goal or a common challenge and accelerate the development of technology to address those pain points.
Right. Thanks for that, Cammy. And what key role do you think would play EUR Mechanical and NZTC would play in the entire energy transition?
I think we need to start by looking at EUR Mechanical firstly in terms of what we're doing before we consider the benefit we'll deliver to our clients in conjunction with net zero. So I spend a lot of my time in front of clients listening to what they expect from their partners. And it's increasingly the case they want their suppliers and partners to walk the talk, as it were. So it's not just enough, rightly, it's no longer just enough to try to, quite honestly, sell your sustainable services to the client base. You need to do it yourself. So what do you need to do? You need to decarbonise your own operations. In our case, you need to double down on emiratization. You need to put the governance in place to make sure you're working in the right fashion. So we at EUR Mechanical, we're in the process of, at the moment, road mapping our ESG strategy, where we're setting bold targets on how we are going to get to net zero. And I think that'll be well received by the client base. If we then look at our partnership with the Net Zero Technology Centre, the rationale behind that is twofold. We recognise, and Cammy's mentioned it, that there's not a one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to driving towards net zero. It varies according to company, to country, continent, right? So what you need to do is find the solution right for that company, balancing financial capability with sustainability ambition. They need advisory services. We need to help the market with that process, and that's why we selected the partner, the Net Zero Technology Centre, to help with the road mapping, to help with the tech due diligence, to help with the horizon scanning. Of course, that's only one piece of it. What's the point of a roadmap? We're trying to get to an end destination, right? And we recognise that that's going to require emerging technologies, it's going to require sustainable technologies. So we in EUR Mechanical have established our dedicated sustainable technologies business line that, in conjunction with international technology players, we will take those folks into the UAE and wider Middle East, and we will make sure our client base has access to those techs to ultimately deliver their roadmap.
Thanks, Neil. And Cammy, what's your take on what just Neil said?
Yeah, I completely agree with Neil, and I think that we're seeing at the NZTC in region that operators and major players in region are really waking up to the role of technology and technology innovation that it will play in the development of these technologies to achieve the energy transition. And I think a really key part of that is the development of mid to high TRL technologies, firstly, and consequently pairing them with end users to trial and scale. I think that's going to be absolutely crucial for the transition. And from our perspective, being able to partner with EUR Mechanical for us is really, really exciting for the main reason for me being that at NZTC we have a really strong understanding of technology innovation. We have expertise and experience of developing and deploying these technologies. And I think when you combine that with EUR Mechanical's project management and manufacturing experience, there really is potential to offer end-to-end solutions to the market. And I think for us, that's why, from our perspective, EUR Mechanical was an obvious partner for us, who shares our passion for technology innovation and shares our mission to advance the energy transition in the UAE. So I guess my final point would be that if anyone is out there, any listeners who are hearing this and are in the process of possibly embarking on their technology roadmap, decarbonisation road mapping journey, please get in touch. We'd be happy to support.
Thanks for that, Cammy. Neil, what advice would you give to the new technology companies entering in UAE?
So I think you mentioned, Victor, that there's significant financial horsepower here, and that's absolutely the case. But I very often find when interacting with tech companies looking to come in that they have a bit of a twisted concept as to how buying decisions here are made. So yes, there is huge financial reserves here, but that will not be invested in half-baked ideas. Clearly, the market here is highly discerning, and it fully understands how to balance financial capability with sustainable ambition. So my advice to folks coming in is to, and it's not specific to sustainable technologies, it's just good business practice, have a clear line of sight on the economic return on investment. It doesn't need to necessarily be 6 months and you're already making your client money and advancing their drive towards net zero. It could be 6 years, but you need to understand when you will achieve that return. The second piece of advice I would offer, if I may, is that we've touched upon how business here in Abu Dhabi and the wider Emirates is relationship-based. Those relationships are underpinned by trust, and you cannot microwave trust. Right? EUR Mechanical have been slow cooking that for almost 50 years now. So my counsel would be for tech developers coming in, whether it be EUR Mechanical or another, really take the time, do your due diligence and find the right partner for you so that you can benefit from those trusted partnerships already in place. Now that's not to say you'll have overnight success. Getting traction may take a bit of time, but it will certainly be accelerated with the right partner.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Cammy. So what I'm hearing, gentlemen, is EUR Mechanical and Net Zero Technology Centre are ideally positioned to offer advisory services, not only part of road mapping the technologies, but also on the actual, providing the technologies to the market. So truly an end-to-end solutions. Thank you for that. And I bet you would be super busy for the next 4 days in ADIPEC, meeting all the right partners and establishing relationships. All the best for that. Thank you.